May 29th, 2023, Charlotte Motor Speedway, lap 186 of the Coca-Cola 600. It is 11:30 at night. The race has been running for nearly 6 hours, delayed by rain, restarted, delayed again. The kind of night that tests every driver's patience and every team's preparation. 500 miles on a 1.5-mile oval, the longest race on the NASCAR calendar, and with 14 laps to go, Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin are racing for position on the front straightaway. Hamlin squeezes Elliott toward the outside wall. Elliott's car makes contact. The damage from the wall goes into Elliott's front end, and the car goes slightly loose coming off turn 4. And then Chase Elliott, the most popular driver in NASCAR, the 2020 champion, the man whose face is on more merchandise than any other driver in the sport, turns his steering wheel hard left, into Hamlin's right rear quarter panel. The number 11 Toyota goes directly into the outside, safer barrier, head-on, at speed, on the front straightaway, in front of 60,000 people and a national television audience. Both cars are done. Both drivers climb out. Elliott walks away without looking back. Hamlin stands next to his destroyed Toyota and says what everyone watching already knows. "It's a tantrum," Hamlin said. "He shouldn't be racing next week." He was right. NASCAR suspended Chase Elliott for one race, the first points-paying suspension of his career. The data was unambiguous. The steering wheel had gone hard left while the car was traveling straight. There was no mechanical explanation. The senior vice president of NASCAR competition said on national television that it was intentional. Chase Elliott said he could not control the car after it hit the wall. Nobody believed him. And the feud that had been building between these two men for 6 years, through playoff battles and pit road confrontations and the accumulated weight of two elite drivers who competed at the same level and could not seem to stay out of each other's way, finally had the moment that defined it. This is the story of how it got there. To understand why Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin spent nearly a decade making each other's lives difficult, you have to understand what each man represented in the sport. Denny Hamlin arrived in NASCAR in 2005 from Chesterfield, Virginia, a driver with a smooth, calculating intelligence that expressed itself in the way he managed races rather than simply driving them. He did not win by being the fastest car on the track. He won by being the smartest man in it. By reading the race, managing his tires, positioning himself for the moment that mattered, and then executing it with the precision of someone who had thought through every possible outcome before it arrived. 3 Daytona 500 victories, 50-plus Cup wins, 20 years of competing at the championship level without winning a title, a fact that the garage found both remarkable and, somehow, completely fitting. Hamlin was too calculating to produce the kind of emotion that championship moments required. Too aware of the politics of the situation, too willing to say publicly what other drivers said privately, and then act surprised when the response was not warm. Chase Elliott arrived in the sport as the son of a legend. Bill Elliott, 16 Most Popular Driver Awards, the 1988 champion, Awesome Bill from Dawsonville, had built a career on the specific, uncomplicated love of the NASCAR fan base. Chase inherited that love before he won his first race. The number 9 car? The Dawsonville, Georgia origin story. The quiet demeanor that made him seem like the most reasonable man in any room he entered. He was the most popular driver in NASCAR 8 consecutive years running. And he was good enough to deserve it. The 2020 champion, one of the best road course drivers the sport had ever produced, the kind of talent that made people wonder whether the next generation of NASCAR greatness was already in the car. 2 elite drivers, 2 completely different personalities, and a rivalry that started not with a dramatic incident, but with the slow accumulation of things that happen when 2 men compete at the highest level long enough. The rivalry did not start at Charlotte in 2023. It started 6 years earlier in the 2017 playoffs. Elliott was 21 years old, in his second full Cup season, competing for a championship against drivers who had been in the sport for a decade longer than he had, with the specific pressure of being the kid who had taken over Jeff Gordon's seat and who needed to prove the choice was justified. Hamlin was 36, a veteran, a man who had already finished second in the championship and who understood what the playoff format required and how to position himself within it. Their 2017 playoff interactions produced the first real heat between them, the kind of back and forth that happens when two drivers are competing for the same positions at the same moments, and neither is willing to give the other the benefit of the doubt. Not one specific crash, not one moment that defined everything. The gradual building of a score that neither man had agreed to keep, but both men were keeping. By the time Phoenix arrived, the penultimate race of that playoff season, the tension between them had been simmering for weeks. And when their cars came together in a way that affected both men's championship hopes, the simmer became something louder. The 2017 season ended. The score was not settled. June 5th, 2022, Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway, outside St. Louis. Ross Chastain was the most aggressive driver in the field that season, the watermelon farmer from Alva, Florida, who had decided that the way to compete in NASCAR was to put the car wherever the gap was and ask forgiveness later. He had already collected multiple enemies in the garage. That afternoon at Gateway, he collected two more. First, he hit Hamlin, hard, from behind. The contact dropped the number 11 Toyota from the lead to multiple laps down with damage. Hamlin spent the rest of the race nursing a car that could not compete. Then he hit Elliott. Same race. Same aggression. The number 9 Chevrolet spinning off turn 4. Two drivers. Both furious. Both without a productive race because of the same man. And then something happened at Gateway that NASCAR had not seen in years. Elliott and Hamlin teamed up. On a restart, Elliott bumped Chastain's left rear, sent him loose. As Chastain recovered, Hamlin came from behind and sideswiped him. 1-2, coordinated. Two rival drivers who competed against each other every week, deciding that their mutual anger at a third party was more important than their competition with each other. It was the most visible sign of what their relationship actually was. Not a simple rivalry. Something more complicated. Two men who had spent years competing against each other and developing a shared code of conduct. And when someone violated that code aggressively enough, they could find common cause. Chastain received their message. He talked to both of them. He apologized. But the Gateway moment had revealed something about Elliott and Hamlin, that underneath the years of friction was a mutual understanding that most of the garage did not have access to. They knew how each other raced. They had been racing each other long enough to know what was intentional and what was not. And when the calculation was wrong, when someone outside their rivalry did something that both of them found unacceptable, they knew how to respond together. That dynamic made what happened at Phoenix in 2022 more complicated. 2022 Phoenix, the championship November 2022, Phoenix Raceway, the penultimate race of the playoff season. Denny Hamlin was in the championship 4 picture. He needed a good result at Phoenix to maintain his position. He had spent the entire season building toward this, the championship that had been his primary goal for 20 years of competing without winning it. Chase Elliott was also racing hard. Their cars came together. Hamlin went into the wall. His championship 4 hopes, the ones he had been building toward for a full season, were over in the space of the contact. Hamlin said afterward that it mirrored their earlier clash at Martinsville, that it was part of a pattern, that Elliott's driving had a specific quality, the quality of a man who competed hard and did not always calculate the consequences for the person on the other end of the contact. Elliott said it was racing. The 2022 championship picture moved on without Hamlin. The score between the two men moved on with it. One entry larger, one grievance more recent, one more reason for the tension to sit there unresolved between two elite drivers at the same track every week. The 2023 season was the worst of Chase Elliott's career. He broke his left leg snowboarding in Colorado before the season started. He missed 6 races. He returned at Martinsville and was immediately competitive. Proof that the talent had not been affected by the injury, that whatever the leg had taken from him physically had not touched what he could do in the car. But he was winless. sitting 29th in the point standings. Fighting to stay playoff eligible, while the drivers around him were winning races and building the cushion that made the postseason comfortable. May 29, 2023, Charlotte Motor Speedway, the Coca-Cola 600, 500 miles. A race delayed by rain. Starting and stopping, the longest night on the NASCAR calendar, turning into one of the most expensive nights of Chase Elliott's life. Hamlin squeezed him into the wall. Elliott's car took damage, and in the fraction of a second that followed, with the damaged car and the long night and the winless season and the broken leg and the 6 missed races all sitting somewhere in the back of whatever a driver's mind contains at 200 miles per hour, Chase Elliott turned his steering wheel hard left, into Denny Hamlin's right rear. The number 11 Toyota went into the wall, head on, front straight away. Both cars destroyed, both drivers done for the night. Hamlin said it was intentional, said it was the same as what Bubba Wallace had done to Kyle Larson, said it was a tantrum, said Elliott should not be racing next weekend. Elliott said he could not control the car after it hit the wall. NASCAR looked at the data. The steering wheel had gone hard left while the car was traveling straight. No mechanical failure, no loss of control. A deliberate input at a moment when the long season and the long night and the man in the number 11. Toyota had finally produced something that Chase Elliott could not hold on to. One race suspension, the first of his career. Hendrick Motorsports did not appeal. The suspension was the end of the war, not a truce. An ending. Both men continued racing. Both men continued competing for the same positions at the same tracks. But the specific heat of the rivalry, the quality it had carried since 2017, the accumulated weight of 6 years of back and forth, began to dissipate in the months that followed Charlotte. Hamlin raced Elliott differently. Elliott raced Hamlin differently. The mutual respect that had always existed underneath the rivalry, the acknowledgement that both men operated at the same level and deserved to be treated accordingly, found its way back to the surface. In 2026, at Texas Motor Speedway, Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin raced for the win in the closing laps. Clean, side by side, the kind of racing that the sport exists to produce. Elliott won. Hamlin said he did a good job of controlling the pace. And Elliott, on Sirius XM NASCAR radio, talking about a rivalry that had produced Gateway and Phoenix and Charlotte, and 6 years of things neither of them would entirely forget, said something that captured everything the feud had eventually become. He said he had no issues with Denny Hamlin at the end of the day, that they had certainly had their run-ins, that he had watched Denny race the right way for a long time, and Denny had raced him with a lot of respect since then. He said Denny was one of the drivers he enjoyed racing with as much as anybody. 6 years, 2 championship battles, 1 team up against a common enemy, 1 suspension, 1 broken leg season that pushed everything past the limit, and then, on the other side of all of it, 2 men who had burned through enough heat to find out what was left when the heat was gone. Mutual respect, clean racing, the specific understanding that comes from competing against someone at full intensity for long enough that the competition itself becomes the relationship. Chase Elliott told the radio audience he had no issues with Denny Hamlin, the most popular driver in NASCAR, the most calculated driver in NASCAR. It took a broken steering wheel on lap 186 at Charlotte to finally figure out what they were to each other. This channel tells the stories behind the standings, the ones that built up across 6 seasons before they finally had the moment that explained everything. Subscribe. Because the best NASCAR rivalries were never the ones that ended badly. They were the ones that lasted long enough to end well.